Hello, this is Christian Martinson. I'm here with Professor Elizabeth Smith at Moody Bible Institute, and we're going to talk today a little bit about the domains of human development. So we have a little chart here that Elizabeth is going to describe for us. You want to get into this a little bit as we get into domains of human development, Elizabeth?
Absolutely. There are 4 domains of human development that we are going to talk about. Area number 1 is the spiritual part of a human being. Here we understand that part of being human is definitely who we are spiritually and where we are in our relationship with God, whether someone is a believer or not, whether they know Christ or they don't, and then exactly what they believe about themselves spiritually or what they understand and believe about God, what their worldview is, how they see the world, how they see themselves, how they see their relationships, and how it all works. You need to look at demonic activity or spiritual warfare. And then the last thing is how they actually practice or how they grow spiritually.
Right.
So this you would look at what kind of church attendance, how much do they read their Bible, what kind of worship, prayer do they do, as well as what kind of service they have within a church family.
Okay.
So understanding where somebody is spiritually is a huge part of understanding where that human being is.
Sure.
A second part of being human, another domain we want to look at, is cognitive. And this is what we are thinking in our mind. You're thinking the mind, the brain, their thoughts. You want to look at somebody's thinking patterns. Usually we tend to be creatures of habit, and so we do see that, for example, people who really struggle with worry, they tend to have certain patterns that they get into regarding that, or fear. Another is their perceptions of the world. You've heard the idea that there's a cup, and some people see it as half full. Other people have it half empty, and some people believe that it's not only half empty, but there's a chip at the top and it's pouring out quickly. Well, whatever your perception of the world is certainly affects who you are.
Sure.
The third is your beliefs just about yourself and the world, your attention and concentration. Some people have a great ability to focus. Others may struggle with that. You might be familiar with something called ADD or ADHD.
Yes.
So that certainly affects how you develop as a person. And then also speech and language, the ability to communicate what you think, what you believe, what your perceptions are, your expectations. That's all a part of being human, and that would go under the cognitive domain.
And just so those watching that may not be able to see these small little pieces here, that's what Elizabeth is going through here. And that's what she was going through on the believer and spiritual aspect. So if you can't see that, that's what we're running through at the moment. Great.
The third one is actually going to be our social systems. We as human beings develop not on an island. We're actually a part of a community. So as you're getting to know someone, or you're even just analyzing or looking at yourself, part of being human in our development is the family that we come from, no matter what that structure looks like. The second is our peers. Those are people that are basically in the same age cohort that we are. A third is looking at your work situation, those kind of relationships, and it's certainly a social environment. A fourth is a society at large. Not every country and government obviously works the same. And so you want to look and really keep within context the person and the country as well as the community that they come from.
Absolutely.
And last is ethnicity and culture. I tend to be Irish English. I
tend to be?
I tend to be. Yes, I am. Kind of proud of it there. But then I have great friends who come from an Asian background, or they come from an African background, and our ethnicity and culture really does play a big part in who we are. So we need to keep all of that in mind as we look at a human being and how they develop. And last but not least is the physical. Here, as we kind of look at a human being and go, okay, first of all, have there been any diagnoses that have been given? I actually deal with celiac, which is an autoimmune disease. Anytime I eat gluten, which is a protein found in wheat, it really affects me physically. That's a diagnosis. It's a part of who I am and certainly affects my development. Second would be eating and elimination. I find this especially important in children and older people. How much are they eating? What are they eating? If I see a child who really does have some behavioral issues, I am going to ask what kind of a routine they're on, how much sugar are they eating, what kind of a diet do they have, what kind of disciplines in that area, as well as elimination. You'll find that people who are older sometimes have an issue with the waste products in their body, and it can actually cause dementia symptoms as well as blood pressure issues. So really looking at how the body is functioning overall is important. Sleeping patterns are huge. We're actually in an epidemic of sleep depravity in this country. Not having enough sleep is a big issue. God does not sleep, but we do. That's how we know we're not God. And sadly, some of my college students forget that they really need sleep because they're not God.
Oh, you're college students. I thought you were talking about people with children like mine.
Yes, no, that and people who are married with young children. Yeah, forget it. Yeah, that's why you're half crazy half the time, because you're just not sleeping. So we would look at your physical issues. There you go. Now you know what the issue is there. Other would be sexuality, what it means to that person of being male and female, and how they handle their gender within their understanding of sexuality.
Sure.
Heredity. We all kind of have been given something at birth physically, and this can affect everything from height to weight to general appearance. Sure. I had a really good friend who actually had a very large birthmark on her face. That certainly affected every part of her life.
Yeah.
And then the last is just the practices of how we take care of ourselves physically. Are we in a healthy area of weight? Are we taking care of ourselves when it comes to the discipline of exercise?
Sure.
Do we have any kind of self-discipline when it comes to our eating? So the practices are how we take care of our body.
Yeah.
So when we look at these 4 different areas and to understand what does it mean to be human, how do humans develop, as we try to understand and grasp that, this is just one way of kind of dividing a person up, going, okay, in all these 4 areas, put it together, we really begin to define what it means for somebody to be human.
Right. No, that's fantastic. Now, what would you do with the topic of emotions? What do we do with our human emotions, and how would that fit into something on a domain like this?
There's a reason that emotions is not a domain in and of itself. And that is because our emotions are affected by all of the above. So instead of making it a separate domain, it is actually a product of each of the domains. So here's an example. When we are physically depleted of serotonin, you are going to have a diagnosis of depression. If you have conflict within your families, let's say you and your lovely wife have a little spat, you are emotionally probably going to feel a little bit of stress.
Yeah.
When you are in a situation and you're tending to focus on the negative aspects of it, you're kind of like a cow with its cud, you're just going over and over all the problems. Cognitively, you're going to feel anxious. When you're engaged in spiritual warfare, and there may be seasons spiritually where Satan and his demons are just really putting you through your paces, you're going to become emotionally vulnerable, very much more sensitive to certain situations.
Yeah.
So a warning with this, we do not, as we understand human beings and actually reach out to help people, we do not want to become emotion focused. And that way we stay on the issues and can move toward change and godliness. And one way to avoid that is not to think of emotions as a separate domain, but to remember it is a product of each of the domains. You really want to know what's behind them, go back to your 4 domains. Don't focus on the emotion, focus on the domain behind it.
That's good. Very good. Well, that's a great introduction to the domains of human development. We'll look next at how to use these domains.